Thank you, Hemantha, for joining us today for this conversation on what happened in the Express Pearl case. You're both the chair of the Friends of Earth International and a key petitioner in the Express Pearl case. To start with, could you briefly introduce yourself for our viewers?
My name is Hemantha Withanage. I'm the chairperson of the Center for Environmental Justice based in Sri Lanka, which is more than 20 years old. And so we have science and legal teams to fight for environmental justice. But I'm also the chairperson of the Friends of the Earth International and also executive committee member of the International Pollution Elimination Network.
Thank you. Uh, can you kindly let us know about the Express Pearl case? There's a lot of interest about this case and what Sri Lanka has been able to achieve after the sinking of the ship, the MSC Elsa 3, near to the Alappuzha coast in Kerala, India. So, could you walk us through what exactly happened with the Express Pearl and why it is considered as a significant environmental disaster?
Thank you. So the Express Pearl ship disaster happened 4 years ago. On 2021, May 19th, it entered Sri Lankan waters. But just maybe around 12 days before, they already found there's a leaking nitrogen container. And when it was already in Qatar, so they reached India. India didn't allow them to resolve this issue. So they, knowing that nitrogen leaking container is there, so they sailed to Sri Lanka. And when on the 19th of May, it enters Sri Lankan waters, then they already complained to the Sri Lankan authorities about the leaking container. Then the authorities initially visited the ship, but then they started the fire control work. But on the 25th May 2021, it blasted and almost like half of the containers dropped into the water. And since then, all the containers washed into the seashore, and also huge amount of plastic pellets. So in this incident, June 2, 2021, it completely sunk. And 4 days later, Center for Environmental Justice, under my name and organizational name, so we went to the Supreme Court asking the government to establish few committees to look into this matter and then quantify the damage and bring that to the attention of the companies and make charges, and also to make the estimates of damage and to take measures to control this pollution and also pay the compensation. That's briefly what is the incident. But just before it sunk, I through the Right to Information Act, I got the list of containers and what was inside the containers, and we found 1,680 metric tons of high density and low density polyethylene pellets, 9,700 metric tons of epoxy resin, and also lead, copper, even lithium ion batteries, one container of lithium ion batteries, and there are several other chemicals. There were other containers with fish and so various other consumable products, which they have loaded from India, Qatar, and other ports. In our case, in the Express Pearl case, the fire started. So because of that, some of the plastic pellets burned, and also epoxy resin burned, And it's not only the pellets, but also the contaminated pellet washed into the seashore and spread all around the country. And few days later, we found at least two-thirds of the Sri Lankan coast was affected by the pellets. And some pellets went towards Mana, because this happened near Colombo, only 12 nautical miles from Colombo harbor. And some pellets went towards Mana, some pellets went towards eastern coast, up to Trincomalee and Mullaitivu, and also many, I mean, a lot of pellets went away from Sri Lanka and towards the Andaman Island, Indonesia, Burma, and that part. So that's basically the incident happened in Sri Lanka.
So you said about both nitrogen leakage, the pellets, and the presence of other hazardous chemicals in the containers. What are the long-term impacts, and what impacts did it see, both in terms of to the marine life, and also in terms of the marine environment, the corals or the other living organisms there. So has there been a kind of a study which brought about the impact on a larger scale, on a long-term scale?
Yes. Actually, other than the pellets, there were 350 metric tons of bunker oil that also slowly leaked into the water. And the shipping company or the government didn't make any control of the leaking oil spill. So I think that may have done a big damage to Sri Lankan waters. But of course, on the pellet issue, uh, with the support of IPEN, International Pollution Elimination Network, we tested the pellets washed into the seashore, and we found that these pellets, of course, they are below 5 millimeters, so then they are actually micro plastics. And other than these microplastics, some of the pellets were slowly they changed the color within 3-4 months time. So it moved from white color to the pink color, yellow color, blue color, and there were different colors. This is because actually the plastic pellets has the ability to capture the chemicals in the ocean, chemicals in the water, and change the color. So with the IPEN report, IPEN, when we done the report, we found very high levels of bisphenol in these plastic pellets, and also polyaromatic hydrocarbon. Now, bisphenol is a carcinogen, and when you talk about the feeding bottles, bisphenol is a very important, very highly hazardous chemical. And there were a lot of bisphenol in these plastic pellets, very high levels. It is because now normally when the epoxy resin burned, the bisphenol is one of the byproducts. So this bisphenol contaminates plastic pellets. So then only you're not talking about the plastic pellets, but also you're talking about the bisphenol contaminated plastic pellets. Now, when these the fish and other marine life forms eat or contaminate with this plastic pellets, so they actually decontaminated with bisphenol as well. The second very high levels of chemical found is the polyaromatic hydrocarbon. Now, polyaromatic hydrocarbon is a carcinogen, and it is also coming because of the burning of the pellets. Now, in the Kerala incident, I believe there was no fire, but still there's a possibility that these kind of chemicals contaminated plastic pellets. So when the plastic pellets spread across the coast, and when the fish mimic this as a food and eat, so that means the contamination can come to the people. So that's one of the report we done with the International Pollution Elimination Network. We also done another research with the maybe 1 year later. Actually, we have done another research with the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, zoological department, but the Professor Padmalal Manage is the main leading scientist there, together with Center for Environmental Justice scientists. We collect all these samples again, but this time we not only collected plastic pellets, but also tested the fish, um, oysters and shrimp, crabs, this kind of species as well. So then we found high levels of nickel, cadmium, chromium, that kind of heavy metals. Uh, Also we found in the body of the fish. So which means by then, maybe 1 year later, we already found that these chemicals started already moving in the food chain. So maybe a few years later, it will uh, add into the body, accumulate in the body, and maybe the concentration become high, which is enough for making some health impacts for the fish eating community. So this is one of the problem, especially you need to have a continuous monitoring of the chemicals in the plastic pellets, because that's the only thing you can test here, because many of the chemicals may have washed into the salt dissolved in the water, so therefore you may not able to catch adequate concentration for testing. But then so you can find them in the food chain already. So those are the two research we have done, but there are other research also done when government was making the report, the claim to the company.
You were saying that it's not just the pellets alone, but the pellets have the propensity to attract other chemicals and pollutants, and will have a kind of an impact which is much more than the pellets alone. And I think that's kind of research your work has thrown out, right? Uh,
Other than those two chemicals, normally we have done this kind of pellet test. I don't know, maybe about 2 or 3 years before this Express Pearl ship incident happened. It was again done by the International Pollution Elimination Network, and we have collected um, uh, pellet samples from Sri Lanka and I think maybe 10 other countries. And we found the PCB, polychlorinated biphenyl, which is again another carcinogen, which is in the air, which comes out because of the transformer oil or some especially the shipping uh, waste oil, which drop somewhere in the water or maybe in the land side. Finally, it is in the water. So that kind of chemicals also can be found in these kind of pellets.
Uh, um, so how did the governments respond? How did the company respond? How did the cleanup happen? Were
Yeah,
there negligence in the part of the shipping company, the port authorities of the government, and how do we make them accountable? Not just in the national sense, but also,
yeah,
this is something which needs to be done across.
yeah,
So what are the negligence? I mean, how did they respond, and how do we make those companies responsible
yeah.
to for the to clean up the pollution they have made, the polluter pay principle, um, which is like globally recognized principle. How did you make it happen?
That's the most interesting part in Express Pearl case as well, because from the day one, they try to hide all the information. They didn't allow us to know that what was in the container, but luckily, uh, um, through the Right to Information Act, I got the list of containers and what was there from the Marine Environmental Protection Agency, and I released this information even before the ship sunk, completely sunk in the water, and but the ship also has a recorder with all the incidents, all the moments, all the recording, but that was not available for the Sri Lankan authorities. And also, the shipping line lied many times, and also uh, they brought a NGO called International Tank Owners Pollution Federation, ITOPE. You can check it online. They are, this is an NGO created in 1979 in order to assist the countries and the shipping line to deal with this kind of pollution. But actually, they are the agent of the insurance company, and they come and try to do everything to hide all the information. And also, they try to assist the government because they are a double agent. They work with the company. Actually, they come with the for the interest of the insurance company and the shipping line, but actually they also show that they are coming to help the government authorities to remove the pollutants from the ocean, make the cleanups, and that kind of double game. And I raised this issue, and they were very unhappy, but they were the one all the time giving advice to the government. And they when I raised this issue, actually they came to they contacted me, and they say, if I know any fisherman, I can also take the claim. I can also make a claim to the ITOF, and the ITOF will communicate with the insurance company and try to bring this claim to pay some money. And actually, in the Sri Lankan case, it is the Sri Lankan technology actually removed the pellets from and the waste from the beach, but it is not. So normally, I even asked ITOF whether what kind of technology you have brought, because if they have if they have established in 1979, they should have a new technology to deal with this kind of plastic removal. But unfortunately, it's all the Sri Lankan technology, and there was someone created a blue machine which can separate all the pollutants, all the nurdles from the sea. But this was very costly process. But there were other like using the sieves and collecting through the hand picking. There were many methods. I think this is one area you should be very concerned, and how the cleanup is doing. The second important thing I want to share, that the insurance claim. Now, once the shipping line declare that this ship is dead, so the ownership goes to the insurance company. So since then, I think maybe in Sri Lankan case, it was 1 or 2 weeks later, they already declared, and then the insurance company had a insurance company took this into their hand. So then after that, the bringing this ITOF and all the others, I mean, the responsibility is going to this insurance company. This particular insurance company took a case in the United Kingdom um, uh, to settle the ceiling of the compensation. So it was without any knowledge to the government of Sri Lanka or any other authorities, even to the civil society organization like us. They brought a case in the United Kingdom, and in this case, actually, they have summoned, or they have asked the government authorities to engage, but because of the COVID situation, they were not aware. And there was a judgment that maximum claim this ship can do is only 18 million British pounds, which is roughly about 26 million US dollars. Now, when the in Sri Lankan case, the government appointed 40 people's committee, which includes scientists, the economists, and all of them. And finally, the first claim actually they brought is about 6.4 billion US dollars. Now, 6.4 billion, although and also they pushed the Sri Lankan government to file the legal action under in Singapore, in the Singapore commercial court, and recently we found that the Singapore case they have no jurisdiction actually, so they cannot give a judgment. I believe, I don't know, it's still ongoing case, but because of our case, the Sri Lankan authorities hire Australian legal firm to support, and they are the one uh, who um, uh, who uh, said that we have to file the claim, the government claim in under the Singapore law, and we took this matter to the parliament. There were parliamentary hearing committee, and there were many. I mean, in the media, you can get this in the media. So we said that Singapore. So we cannot have the case in the Singapore law, and it has happened in Sri Lanka, and also it has all the damage is here, all the witnesses are here, so the evidence are here, so therefore we have to file the case in under the Sri Lankan jurisdiction in the Sri Lankan court, which we done actually. We filed the initial case only 4 days after the incident, and there were four other petitions joined, and then through this petition now, this 29th, the May 29th, they completed the hearing, and now we are waiting for the judgment. And in this claim, Center for Environmental Justice clearly demand to pay the 6.4 billion compensation.
You actually gave us two warnings. One is to be beware of companies who would mask themselves as NGOs or who would mask themselves as protectors of ocean, but really working for companies, the shipping companies and insurance agents, and then change the power situation somehow and give false advice. And second is to be aware of the insurance companies and the kind of manipulations they do in terms of capping the compensation in the whole cases. I think those are huge learnings for us from your experience. Also, to ask a little bit, has there been any compensation to the fishing communities? They are the ones whose livelihood would be heavily affected. About what kind of compensation which has gone to the fishing communities. They are the ones who are living by the ocean, and what has been the compensation which is being demanded by the fishers, and whether some amount of compensation was given by the state to the fishing communities at large.
Yes, that was one of the claim by the local fishermen here, because there are different type of boats in Sri Lanka: the small boats, the bigger boats, and the multi-day boats, and then the beach sieves like that. And there were at the initial days, I think there were little compensation were paid, but based on their income, I think the big boat got about 60,000 rupees, and the small person got about 5,000 rupees or something like that. I don't exactly remember, but in the claim, in the official claim, 72 million US dollars is allocated for paying the compensation for the fishermen. Um, and this is interesting. Now, the turtles, we lost about 400. We found about 400 turtles, and it is about 10 to 15% of the turtles washed to the coast. But I think most of the turtles die, so they just washed to the other side. Then there were whales, dolphins also died in this incident. And there was a calculation, I think up to 3 billion calculation for the loss of turtles in this incident. So there are methods you can calculate this amount, but then the loss of tourism, loss of income for the tourist hotels, a lot of local tourism, air pollution, and also exact cost for the clearance and all. So there are many other areas you can learn from this one. So this is our claim is about 6,000 pages document. So which we have got through the court case. I think we can share that claim as well. Now in the claim process, after the first claim, normally another at least two more claims should be done. But unfortunately, the Sri Lankan authorities they didn't support the small team, 40 people's expert team to continue this work. So therefore, we don't have the claim number 2 and 3. And there should be continuous research because we are talking about the chemical pollution and it's going through the food chain and all of them. So you need some time. You cannot just initially test check and make a claim for everything. So it should be continuous work. So those are also learning for you when you are doing this further work on this matter.
Uh, we all know that looking forward, how do we see the nature of the maritime regulations which needs to be done, and how do we ensure the rights of fishing communities in in those regulations? We also know that there is this there is this the plastic treaty which is being discussed and which is being negotiated among the countries now. So, what are the kind of relations we do have in these things? I mean, whether the plastic treaty adequately addresses the issues which are such as the pellet pollution and other things. Second, what kind of policy and changes which we require now, both at the global and the regional level, which would ensure both protection of the marine environment and the fishing and the coastal communities and their rights.
Um, Thank you. I think one of the important thing for you to understand is that our laws most of the time not adequate, or maybe the enforcement is not adequate, and also sometimes the contingency plans are not there in the Sri Lanka, although located next to the most busiest maritime shipping line, but we don't have a contingency plan. So that's one thing. And also, even if they have a contingency plan, whether they have implemented properly, whether they had adequate booms and measures. So that's one thing, but that's an important thing. But the second thing is about the international law. Now, international law, there's no coverage at the moment for uh, plastic pallets, because the plastic pallets are not included in the IMO as the hazardous material. So after the Express Pearl incident, now there's a proposal brought to the IMO that's under negotiation at the moment, to include plastic as a hazard material. Now, one of our argument is that in our case, we found 1,680 plastic pallets is just one ship, in few containers, but also they were in a very breakable plastic bags. This should be controlled. There should be better guidance to transport, and I think maybe carrying 1,600, more than 1,000 metric tons of plastic pellets in just one ship, it's definitely it's going to create a disaster, because previous cases, like there was one in Hong Kong, one in South Durban, and all of them are actually talking about talking about 50 metric tons or something around. But in our case, it's 1,680 metric tons. There should be definitely control. And also under the Basel Convention, there's a proposal to bring this plastic nurdle as a waste material. So um, all the countries should get together and fight for this international law amendments to suit this kind of maritime chemical disasters.
Uh, Coming to an end, what you think is the broader message or lesson that this sends to the international community? I mean, how does international community need to fight now, given the experience of Express Pearl and the other cases you have also been mentioning, not just in Sri Lanka, now there is in India, you have mentioned about Dublin, you have mentioned about Hong Kong. So, what is the broader message for the international community which you would like to give?
Yeah. I think avoidance of this kind of situation is the most important thing. So we have to make all the regulations to make sure that this kind of incidents won't happen in the future, and especially when the shipping lines carry nitric acids containers, caustic soda containers, and several other chemicals together with the plastics. The risk is very, very high. So I think the very first thing, I think all we have to give a stronger regulation to the shipping line, because this kind of disasters can happen any moment, and in many of our countries, because we have a large coastal areas. So that's one of the thing. The second is actually we have to make sure that the ships, especially when older ships sail to our countries, what sort of local regulations we should have. Especially in our case, we found that the ship entered Sri Lankan waters has it was not seaworthy. This is part of the law actually. The If it is not seaworthy, that means if it is not suitable to sail into the water, they should not move an inch. But in our case, they found the leaking container when they were already in Qatar airport, Qatar harbor, and they came to India and came to Sri Lanka also. And none of these airports have the capacity to deal with this kind of disaster. So I think we should restrict what they can carry together. It's not just everything, not only nitric acid and all these chemical containers. Even in even in the Express Pearl case, they found dried fish and fish, and there are many other food items as well. Now, how can you do this thing? So I think that's another area. And also I think we need a proper coordination between the civil society in these countries. I think this kind of sharing is very, very important. But I think this kind of awareness should happen much earlier. Then I think then we can also be prepared. Definitely, we have to inform the coastal communities, especially the fishing communities, how they can manage in this kind of incident. So I think the insurance scheme is very important at the national level, and also my understanding is all the shipping lines as well as the insurance companies try to avoid making payments. So they will do every cut to the compensation, every cut to the claim. And we shouldn't allow this kind of thing happen, because at the end, in one of the case in Mauritius, because it destroyed the whole local community. So then the Pope and one of the UN experts said, you were trying to go away from paying this pollution, because that community is a very poor community. So that created, and then so they said at least this pollution, this ship disaster worth about 10 billion compensation. So in our case also, we believe that if we have done the second and third compensation, we could have at least reached 10 billion. I mean, that's the kind of damage they have done. But unfortunately, weaknesses of our government side as well, our claim is only about 6.4 at the moment. But through the court process, I don't know whether we can get even that amount. So I think so we have to fight from different fronts against this kind of ship disasters, especially chemical ship disasters.
Thank you, Hemantha ji, for sharing your thoughts, sharing the case, and also, reminding us that a strong civil society is quite essential in terms of balancing the power for poorer communities and marginal communities, and to raise the demand at the international level so that accountability of shipping companies, insurance companies, and all those who pollute our seas, our oceans, our rivers, and the people and to stand with the people who live by the resources, particularly the fishermen. All the best to the work you do as the Friends of Earth International, and I think that organization would help people come together, bring solidarity, and give this voice to the people at us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your interest as help in the communities affected by this disaster as well.